All right, bro. So
Hey,
we are on the first Godly Business podcast. Welcome to the Godly Business podcast. Here is
thanks.
with me Eric Dorado. He is my better half of this relationship. We've known each other for close to, I think, yeah, it's 20 years now.
Just a
Um,
little.
and we're gonna get on this, but we decided, I've been bugging him about doing something like this for a year now. And I've been doing another podcast that I've been doing for 6 years. And I said, bro, we need to get together and do something, or at least some way. But he is a behind the scenes guy. I am the faith in the mouth. This is just how this relationship works. But I wanted to do the first podcast about godly business between me and him, because we've gone through some serious challenges in the last year or two. And man, has this been a year with COVID and everything. Everything just happened. And if it wouldn't have really been for our faith in God, I don't know where we both would be, bro.
Amen. Amen to that.
But bro, we started together back in, I actually met you first when I started going to the church we were attending. And I started going to the Bible Academy, the Bible college they had there. And I met you through that because you were one of the professors there. How long were you teaching there?
I would say, gosh, that's a really good question. I think I started in 2000.
Okay. In
So by the
2000.
time we met, yeah, by the time that we met, I think we met in 2007.
No, no, no. This was 2000. So I must have started in the academy because I started attending the
Yeah.
church
So
in
a little bit,
2000.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
in
And
like in probably like in September, October of 2000, because I came back to Miami in June of 2000. I remember because I left Ohio on my birthday, which was June 4th.
right,
And then a couple of months later, the reason I started because I was listening to them on the radio, and I said, oh, let me attend the church. And then I realized they had a Bible college, and I said, wow, this would be neat. And I started attending, and you were one of the professors there. You were teaching the major
major
prophets, right?
prophets and the minor prophets, and
And the minor
until
prophets, yeah.
yeah,
So
until the academy shut down like in 2017 or something, 2018. So I did
right.
yeah,
So I
just
was there actually for 2 years, and then I went through it again. I went through it again for 2 more years. So I almost
right.
got a bachelor's going there twice, or I was just a terrible student and I
There
needed
you
to
go.
go twice. Um, so
Wow.
yeah, man. So that's how we met, and then later I became the youth leader, and then I started working with you because you were handling all of the media ministries.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you
Pretty
also are a
much.
musician, and you played in the worship team. And I started working with you when we started launching the television ministry,
Right.
and
Right.
you were handling all of the production side of it, and I was handling all of the pre-production. You were post-production, so I was doing all the camera work with and believe it or not, we had all the youth were running all the cameras. So
Yeah. The church really hadn't even. I mean, it had basically just ventured into the digital, into
right,
the digital world just with CDs. And I
right,
I remember it was at that juncture where I remember talking to the guy that used to work there before, would record everything on cassette.
right,
And I remember telling the pastor, there's an easier way. It could actually be, edited on a computer and
right.
put out, and that was the start of it. So like when you started working full time at church, it was like the perfect complement because we saw, we had like a vision that was
Yeah.
uh pretty close, and we complemented each other well.
Yeah,
And
I think
we
we're
actually
both
kind of
progressive in seeing where things are going and
yeah, and we took
trying.
it.
And then
That's
always the issue is trying to get leadership to see it, of where things
exactly.
are going, because we saw where it was going. I mean, I was
Yeah,
talking to you about, like, why aren't we putting this academy on DVDs
exactly.
and
Exactly.
distributing it and getting everybody to listen to this on DVD? We have the camera equipment. We're already recording it. Um,
the
and
the
we just
we
had a
had
huge uphill.
pastors we had pastors from other church, you know commenting to our pastor, where do you guys get such a beautiful studio and the production and everything? It was just two guys in a little office
I know we
and
were
a
doing
bunch of
green
kids.
screen. We were doing green screen. I mean, I remember setting up the
Yeah,
lights. We didn't have lights, and we were using those construction lights. And I was
exactly.
making reflectors out of whiteboards
Ad
because we
hoc.
didn't have any money for the equipment.
Yeah, necessity is the mother of
Yeah,
invention.
necessity's a mother, that's for sure.
Yeah, for a fact.
Yeah, I mean, but this is a believers podcast, so
Yeah,
we'll just leave it there. But no, bro, I
yeah,
mean, we were doing so many neat things, and even our program, we call it a show, and then the pastor would get upset every time we call it a show. I
yeah.
just do it to bug him, because it's a show. It's not a show. It's a
Just
program.
goading him.
And but we were nominated to go international with that program
Yes, yes,
on that Christian network that we were on,
yeah.
and nobody knew how we were doing this, and everybody is like blown away with the quality of the production, and like if you knew there were 13-year-old kids doing the camera work, it would be
It's
like,
true.
I
We
mean, you
did.
think about what we accomplished with very little, and these kids that we were able to get them every week to go up there on 3 cameras and direct them on how to take shots.
One of the things that I learned back then, and I'm probably just relearning now for the last 2 years that we're trying to put some of the projects that we're working on together,
Right.
is to talk less and just do it.
I know.
Remember how many times we were like, well, we should be doing or trying to get that across to whoever was in leadership, and they wouldn't see it. It would just go right.
Right.
It wasn't until we actually started doing it.
Right.
It was like, okay, we're gonna go on live TV.
Yeah.
Right. Let's just get these cameras hooked up
Yeah,
this way.
me, I'm always the kind of guy that I just rather apologize and do it than to ask for permission.
Yeah, and it's
And
true.
and then because of the way we had to just do things, it was very difficult. But I mean, we were even talking about you and I starting a business like recording weddings and doing. We knew how to use
Exactly.
cameras. We know how to do audio.
We knew
I
how
mean,
to create DVDs,
I
interactive
was doing
DVDs.
concert
Yeah,
productions and doing live sound for 25 years. We have the knowledge to do things, but
yeah,
look how long it's taken to get some of these
yeah.
ideas that we had in place. 20 years because of all the restrictions and everything everybody put on us
It's
to
and
do
it's
because
not
we
and it's not only everybody. Sometimes it's just talking from my side. It's
right,
self-imposed. There's a lot of stuff that I struggled with,
right,
emotionally or intellectually on my own part.
right,
It's like, man, and then you see other people doing stuff, and it's like, kind of that, not to be big-headed, but it's like, I know for a fact that this person is not necessarily the sharpest tool, in the
right,
barn, but he's doing it,
right.
and I struggle with that a lot, actually.
Yeah,
I'm learning to be able to just do it and not be so judgmental on myself and be so hard on myself to the
right.
point where you basically paralyze
Yeah,
your
and
progress.
that's been the case, and I've always a struggle that I'm pushing people. I mean, I mean, we're venturing into so that people know where this is going. I've been doing a podcast for 6 years for my personal business. I own a pest control business for the last 14 years. Since I left the church, I mean, I left from being a youth minister, youth leader, full time to then going into and starting my business up and running that business for the last 14 years. And then we started talking about things. I said, bro, I have an idea. I think this will be right up your alley. We started talking. This has been now
Right.
over 2 years. We started doing stuff together again and collaborating. And you're in a position where you finally had to leave that job,
Right.
and we're gonna get into that. But I started talking to you about what I've been doing and the stuff that I've been doing, and you said, "Man, I'm wanting to do all that stuff." And always the question, well, what's stopping you? And it's always been there's a certain level of insecurity, even though I think you're probably one of the brightest people I know and the most knowledgeable in what you're doing. There's no question that you
Thank you.
have the knowledge. And we look at other people. I don't think some people know they don't know enough, and they just decide they're going to do it, and they don't know enough not to know they don't know. and then
Yeah.
it's serendipitous, it works, and they
It's
get lucky.
liberating, actually.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I am. I was like, let's just do this, man. Let's just try it and see what happens. So what if we fail? What's the big deal? I mean, it's not like anybody knows who we are.
Yeah.
You know,
You know,
so yeah,
I
so we're gonna be doing this. This is one of the companies you wanted to launch because you're a web designer. You understand the whole backbone of audio and video and all the tech stuff. I mean, that's what you know. Plus, you've been a teacher for what, going on 30 something years.
yeah, since 1988,
So you've
believe it
been
or
a
not.
teacher. So you have
Yeah.
the ability to teach, but you also have the ability to do, which is rare, which is why we make a good team because I also have that ability. I have the technical part, but I'm more extroverted. I'm in front of everybody. I
Exactly.
don't have an issue getting in front, and you do. You have an issue being in front. You're more comfortable behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And I think that's what holds you back a lot because trying to launch the business you wanted to launch when we started having the discussion, I said, man, that's going to be very hard for you because you really got to be a salesman
Right.
or a salesperson in this case. You're a man, but we're in a politically correct age where we
Who
have to be
cares?
gender neutral, I guess. But you're not. Sales is not your strong thing. You've never been. I
Right.
mean, you've been in some of it, but you don't enjoy it
Right.
as an enjoyable part of your business. You rather do the tech stuff, and
And
I
the
am more
creative, yeah.
upfront. So I said, trying to do what you want to do with the company we want to launch, the DigitalBisque, um, trying to convince small businesses for us where we live in Miami, where it's very expensive to live, and
Yes.
needing to generate 10, 15, $20,000 a month of revenue.
Right.
Convincing, doing SMB consulting and SEO, and when the market is so saturated with that, getting a client to find that client that's going to spend 15 to 3,000 a month is tough, even for me. I mean, that's why I was like, nah, dude, that's going to be so hard. And
Right.
you need a full-time salesperson partner like me, but I already have all these projects that I'm doing. I got my business. We want to launch all this. Let's do the digital media thing because I'm already doing it. You've already done it. Let's
Right.
show people how to run successful businesses because I've done it for 14 years and I've been a salesperson and a business person my whole life. And how do we do something together where we can really make an impact in the world? I mean, we can really, and we talked about us taking that Bible Academy now.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been doing a Bible podcast, the similar thing. I've been doing it for 15 years.
Right.
And I already, knew that you're biblically literate. I'm biblically literate. We've got some of the
Right.
people from the church that are biblically that were in that academy teaching.
Yeah.
We launched that academy and we launched it free for Central and South America where people can't afford to go to Bible college.
Exactly.
And we give that away. Um,
Yeah.
we're talking about doing your academy. You've been an English teacher. Let's talk about that because from conception to reality to actually moving that into a business. Let's talk about your career in not in tech because that's half of it, but the other half is being an English teacher,
Yeah. Language instructor.
a language instructor.
Basically.
So talk to me
Yeah.
about that, how you got started in that, and then we're going to get into where that's going now. But let's talk about that. I mean, how did you get into teaching or doing language instruction?
Well, my parents were originally from Ecuador, um, and my dad moved over here because he loved this country. He was an admirer of the ethics and the values of good old America.
Right,
So he decided, I want my kids to grow up in this country, and
right,
that's really how it started. When I was 14, he passed away, and really, my mom had nobody here, and she just she wanted that emotional support from her own family. We sold everything: house, cars, everything. My brothers left college, and it was just like it was pretty traumatizing actually to move to a third world country. But
right.
we loved our mom, and that's what happened. So To make a long story short, at 18, I came across an ad in a paper, and I wanted to work already. And there was a position open for, they were seeking teachers. I just happened to basically walk in and say, "Hey, I'm a native speaker. Is there any chance for me getting an interview or something?" It started there. Took a test. I was called for an interview. Then I started actually getting trained to be a teacher at 18. So I was really young. I messed up a few kids there, not in the bad sense, but I didn't know what the hell I was doing at the very
Right.
beginning. But I started getting better, and it was one of those fortuitous things where I really didn't know I had a talent for that, or that I had basically a calling for that in a way. So, but it naturally happened. I started getting more classes with adults, and it just took off from there. So I got married in '93 and moved to back to the United States in '94. Uh, I was working, believe it or not, selling computers at Sears. Did not do too well, but I love technology. I'd always loved technology, and
Right.
I thought that's something I'd like to do.
Right.
And I started going to college to study network engineering
Right.
because I thought that's what I want to do. At the same time, I would walk home and pass by a place called CCLS, a school,
Right.
and I would always get this. My heart would just boom, boom every time I walked by. I was like,
Right.
man, I miss teaching. You
Right.
know, that's where it started. One day, I decided to just walk in, and I talked to a guy called Anthony Piazza, great guy, and he said, "Well, just show up, and I'll give you a little bit of a training and see maybe if this is something you'd like to do." And that's it. That's when my career basically resumed in 1997. That's what happened. I had already started college again to go basically to become, an IT guy.
Right.
And I started doing that for a while, but it just really didn't, you know,
Right.
it didn't really resonate with me. It's like, dang, I'm going to spend the whole day working on computers and fixing. It just wasn't satisfying, you
Right.
know. And then this is the funny thing in ministry. It's interesting how God draws all these little experiences and all these little things that you venture into. He
Right.
starts drawing them together. You know, at church when I started there, everything was snail mail. You had to, you printed one thing, you would take it to somebody else and copy it. I was already going to school, and I started figuring out, why don't these, people just use a little network and, stuff like that. So I started everything that I would learn, I would implement in church. I
Right.
helped them put together the first network, went online. They wanted to do they were already doing radio. The guy that was working there was doing everything on cassette in real time.
Right.
Hit play, pause, here
Right.
comes the music. And I remember telling the guy, we can do this, on a computer. And well, to make a long story short, that stuff started coming together. I was still teaching on the weekend, no, on the weeknights. So I just always kept that up while I started learning more about, the digital world.
Right.
And little by little, we had a website, and I started seeing the creative side, just starting to surface because I'm a musician as well.
Right.
So that naturally translated into the music, into, taking over the website. It's like, man, this doesn't look too nice. Maybe I can fix it. So I
Right.
started, putting whatever I was learning in college, HTML and coding and stuff like that. That creative part started actually becoming more prominent. And I realized I don't want to do IT. I start, realizing I love web design. I love graphic design. I like to make these videos now. I started playing. By the time you met me, or the time we ran into each other, I
Right.
already had, you know, a few of those skills already owned.
Right.
And it all started coming together. I needed the tech part, which is, remember we put together a few computers to
Yeah.
get that show off, running, and then the cameras and stuff. And I realized it was better for us to just do stuff rather than talk so much and just get
Right.
it done.
Yeah, I remember I would push you like, let's just do it, bro. I mean,
Yeah.
should we ask the pastor? I was like, no, let's just
No,
do it.
no, let's get it done. Exactly. And we realized that
We
that's,
can always erase it if it doesn't work.
yeah. And that's the way his mentality is anyway.
Right.
It's just, it was harder to convince him in
Right.
just words rather than
Showing
just
them.
here, look what I just set up. And he
Yeah.
would see something and, okay, let's go for it. Let's keep running.
Right.
And meanwhile, I was just teaching and teaching and teaching.
Right.
And September 11th really was a massive, I mean, the waves that created, as far as the way it affected this country,
Right.
financially and economically and everything. It did it basically to my career as a teacher, because up to one point I was teaching full time, and I was making like $20. This was like in 19, let's see, that would be like 96. $20 the hour back then, full time. I was
Try
doing
to
all.
look over here on the camera because
Yeah, I'm sorry.
yeah, you keep focusing on the screen. Just talk to me.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is
We'll delete that.
so what ends up happening is that suddenly all the classes that I had after immigration got a little bit more stringent. Policies changed and everything after September 11th. Everything just went, shh,
Right.
and
Because
I ended
you were
up.
teaching mostly you teach Hispanic people how to
Yeah,
speak
that's
English.
that. Yes, exactly.
Right.
And this is the funny thing about those limiting thoughts, that for a long time I didn't even feel like an actual teacher,
Right.
just because I focus so much on Latinos. It's like, maybe you're not such a good teacher anyway, because you only do well with Latino students.
Right.
Well, it actually, the fact is, I taught mostly Latino students here in Miami because that's what you get.
Right.
But I didn't realize that that would actually be an asset.
Right.
That I can actually be a niche in business. I saw it as a weakness. I thought that maybe I'm not such a good teacher. I shouldn't even. So I just kept teaching because that's what I like.
Right.
It was a little bit of extra money after September 11th. Obviously, I couldn't depend on that anymore. And my work at the ministry, just, I started working there full time, and that required more of my time. So teaching sort of took a back seat. I would still teach in the evenings, a couple of hours, you know, and that's basically it. By 20, what was it, 2018?
Well, you were
Things
still teaching because you were doing the Bible Academy
exactly, and
on
I was
my.
teaching.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was one of the things that you were still teaching there,
yeah,
which
and
is
I
where,
taught good.
where I met you first.
And I taught guitar, and I also taught keyboards. I mean, one way or another, I mean, most of those kids right now actually are, I wouldn't say working musicians, but they are active in their churches as musicians,
Right.
and in many cases, they actually get paid. I used to teach those kids when they
Right.
were like 10 or 11.
Right.
And just to see, so one way or another, the teaching thing has always been like an integral part of my life.
Right.
After 2018, the ministry sort of, ran into issues, financially and everything, and they just couldn't keep us, So I was forced to actually go out and look for a job, and I landed a job briefly as a graphic designer. Really nice people,
Right.
everything should have worked, but I just, well, you remember, it was a phase that it was like mourning, it was death,
Right.
because my life had been so immersed in ministry and in
Right.
serving.
For about 18 years.
Yeah, and then dropping that and going to work for somebody else. And there was, I didn't, it was hard, it was rough for me, that transition.
Yeah. Emotionally, it took a toll. I mean, we were having
Exactly.
this discussion where I think, at the same time I'm going to a transition in my life where this is, we got COVID hit, and this is when it hit the fan for you, when they finally decided to shut everything down.
Yeah.
There was only, we went from 600 members down to about less than 16 at times.
Right.
And then COVID hit, and there was just no need to keep that open. A lot of the things that we discussed that I wanted you to do and them to do in the ministry would have been great. But again, I'm going back to where the vision went, and, without a vision, the people perish, and,
Yes.
understanding all that. But I goaded you for a long time about
Right.
you
Right.
doing your own thing. I mean, we talked about doing your own thing, but unlike, you're not like me. I'm a risk taker.
Right.
I'm just the atypical person that leaps out of that perfectly good airplane first and then asks, "Where's the parachute?" You're more of a you're more introverted. You're more diplomatic than I am. I'm not diplomatic at all. You're more of a needing more of that security,
That
stable,
net. Yeah.
that net under you. And as long as you're, there's that verse in scripture that tells us you can't serve two masters, because you will love one and despise the other. Most people that want to start up a business are get into that love-hate relationship, where I want to start my business, but I have the golden handcuffs or the safety net that I need,
Yeah.
and I won't launch and then they're like trying to launch their business, but they're still stuck over here where they have to spend most of their time.
Yeah.
And me, when I left, I said, I'm going into it full. And I basically started up with almost nothing, but I'm a salesman. So I went out and sold, and I got,
Right.
plus I had my wife that was working at the time, and, we were very frugal, and with one salary, we could make it until my first couple of months or 6 months I was already making an income, but it took me about 6 months.
Right.
There's a lot that these emotions, and a lot with you is everybody sees the talent in you. Has always
But
seen
I
it,
don't see it. But
and
I
then you
don't
don't
see
see
it.
it.
Yeah.
You don't think it's enough
Yeah.
to make it happen, and then you see somebody, like I said, dude. I mean, we see people that we don't know what they're doing, and they go and launch and they do it, and they're still successful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we know more than a lot of these people, and we don't do it because we're held back because of the fear.
Right.
So a lot of it has to do with that, which leads us to another thing, because the whole spiritual aspect. I mean, think about it. We're born again believers.
Yeah.
We have the Holy Spirit. We have the verse that tells us that, that we are not to fear, because we have the Spirit of love and of in us.
That casts out all fear.
That cast out all fear. Yet,
There we go.
there we go. We're still afraid to. These are the
It's true.
real issues that we deal with in the body of Christ. That it has to be. Everything has to be a renewing of the mind. Transformed by renewing the mind. But we think it's always biblical, and a lot of the time we don't take the biblical and apply it to the practical, so that we can actually, utilize it. It's always in spiritual things. So where do we apply it to our work life? Where do we apply it to our business life? This is why I've really been wanting to do something like this, to take the scripture and understand that, hey, we're still going to go through stuff. We're still going to go through fear. We're still going. I mean, I'm probably going to be Gideon at 85. Let's go, man. We gotta go. We gotta go start this thing. Let's go and do it. I'm ready to go. And I'm here with a walker. Probably, and I'm going. Let's go. We got to go do this.
There you go.
That's just how I'm wired. And I can see how we work really good together.
Right.
Because I've always respected you highly, because I know there's no reason, there's no competition between us. There never has been, because you have your strong parts and I have my strong parts. And how do we do something together, utilizing our skills? Because I know my lane, you know your lane, I don't try to do what you do, and you don't ever try to do what I do because
Right.
it just doesn't work. Um, it's being comfortable in our own skin.
Right. Right.
And then part of what you've been through. I mean, we went through some during COVID, where I was going through a separation, and
Right. Right.
I was having my emotional issues that I was dealing with, and you were going through a separation because you had just left the church that you've devoted your life to, which was
Right.
almost your second wife.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
literally, and I was paralyzed almost, which this is interesting how stress works because I was under so much stress. I got a business to run. Now I'm raising my child by myself.
Right.
I've got, all of these plans that we were talking about, and we can't get it done because something drastic happened in our life. I mean,
Right.
I was so stressed out that I got drop foot and I couldn't even walk. I thought I had gotten a stroke.
I remember that. Yeah.
You started having the same thing. You got so stressed out that you got paralysis in your face.
I got
And
it.
I thought you had a stroke too.
Yeah, I got it on both sides. I got it on one side,
Right,
and then I got it on another side.
right.
And I mean, finally, after months, I'm starting to recover that.
Yeah,
But
but
it's
I mean, this is
very
what stress
real.
does.
It's very
And
real.
you don't manifest stress because you're passive aggressive. You just internalize everything and absorb it. Me, I used to do that, and now I learned not to do that anymore, to absorb all that. And I started.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to go into physical therapy. Uh, to I thought I had gone to that. I had a thrombosis in my foot or something.
Right.
I couldn't even walk, and I got to
Yeah.
run a business, and I got to go meet customers, and I'm here stumbling like my foot's dragging, and my neck is so intense, and my back that I got to get a physical therapist to massage me once a week. I mean, it's
Yeah.
paralyzing to be under that kind of stress.
Right. I'm a teacher, as we've just been discussing. And when I got hit with this,
Right.
it's like, holy cow, this is my tool. I need to be able to communicate. Suddenly now I have to look intellectual for 4 hours and a half.
Yeah.
Because I'm actually propping up my lip to be able to talk. That's how bad it got.
Yeah.
It was scary. Nobody at my school figured it out. They just thought that this guy's very like brainy. No, I'm
Yeah. He
just
really he
hiding.
really pays attention to this.
Yes. you know, and I could you say that again? That sort of stuff.
Right.
That's how bad it's been.
Yeah.
And my wife has been very supportive, and her
Right.
faith is much simpler than mine. I
Right.
sort of need to see some evidence. I need to see the plan and everything.
Right.
Vedo's been, steadlong and telling me you're gonna get you're gonna recover from this. Just wait on the Lord. I know it's gonna happen. Just relax. But it's been rough.
Right.
It's been rough.
No, it's been incredibly rough for a lot of people. I mean, people have lost their jobs, they've lost their
Exactly.
homes. Um,
Exactly.
this COVID thing has affected. I mean, we had to go into massive amount of debt to
Yeah.
borrow the PPP money and to pay our people and borrow the
Right.
SBA money, which we've got 30 years to pay that thing off. I got another school
Wow.
loan. I finished paying my school loan like 20 years ago, and now I'm But I have faith that what
Yeah.
we're doing. We just had to
Yes.
triple our marketing effort. When we were making 25% growth year after year on a 3% marketing budget, now I got to go and say maybe we can grow 15. Luckily, we broke even. We from last year, we actually did about $2,000 less than last year. So we were able to maintain. The growth stopped, but we were able to maintain and
Right.
just have to borrow an enormous amount of money to make sure that we had it in the bank to pay our people.
Right.
Because if I decided I wasn't going to shorten my people's salaries, that even if we didn't make money, and that I couldn't shorten their salaries, because if I did, then they would be forced to go work somewhere else, and then now their heart's divided. And I would rather than, even if they're only working 35 hours a week, get them to do something else, and still pay them for 40, so that they wouldn't take
Right.
the hit. So
Exactly.
financially, I had to take a huge hit, But I decided that was the right thing to do for my people because a laborer is depending on his wages to be there.
Exactly.
A business owner, I'm trusting my profits are going to be there as a manager if I manage well.
Yeah.
And that's hard because most people would say, no, the heck, everybody's suffering. They're going to have to take a pay cut. Man, they're already working for just above a living wage because I pay them a living wage. I don't hire anybody at $5, $10 an hour like people here do in Miami. They're making 13 to 17 an hour for starting out. And, when they move up quickly. So it's tough. It's really, really tough to going through this, and I'm going through my personal, and then COVID hits, and then, dealing, and I have to, and I'm the face of my brand. I'm the face of my company. I got to be in front of clients, and I have to be on all the time. We have to play this. Everything is fine game with everybody.
Right.
When it's not, and the customers don't need to know what you're going through, and they don't need to see it. And your employees, you can't say, well, you know what, I'm just so stressed, I can't deal with you right now.
Right.
I got to take care of them because they're the ones in the field taking care of my customers. So I have to be on for them. And then I got to be on for my child. And I got to be on for my mom. She's 85. And I got to be on for everybody. And being on all the time is just exhausting.
It wears you down, of course.
It wears you down. And then where do I go other than to God? Which, thank God, a lot of guys that I know are doing pot. That's how they're coping. I mean, a lot of the business owners I know. God. What are you doing, bro? I'm on HTC. I'm on pot, man. I got a medical. I can't cope with all this. I took supplements. I started working out. I started stretching. I started doing physical therapy, which is what I've been getting you to do. I mean, you got to get out and just do the walking. And I had to walk away from a lot of things in my business and say, I'm not going to be available for everybody. I need to be available for these key people, my employees, my child, my customers. I'm not going to have time, guys, for anybody else right now for a lot of your issues. And here I am still producing a podcast. I decided finally to do the Sunday podcast for the other one I'm doing to minister to people because I think it's different. I think as God's ministering to me and I'm ministering to them, there's a healing that happens. I just can't be available for everyone that wants my time. And that's the challenge because the thing that I have right now that I can't make any more of is time.
That's true.
I'm so limited in the time. And this is where I'm trying to get everyone, including you, to understand that you can't let people hijack your time.
Yeah.
Because you're a nice guy. You're like me. You want to help everyone.
Right.
And we're in a situation where, hey, we only got so many hours in the day. I can only get involved in so many projects. I can only help so many people physically.
Right.
I can do more by training up people, like the Bible says in Ephesians, that the reason the pastors and the prophets and are there for the training up of the workers.
Right.
To do the work of the ministry. Well, mine as an instructor and as a teacher that I am also very good at, we're both gifted in that area, which is really odd. That we're the only difference between me is that I guess I'm the extrovert and you're the introvert. You're behind the scenes and I'm in front of the scenes, but we have these unique abilities that complement each other. And I just been, what can I do? Because I know, I remember calling you, dude, and saying, look, I'm going to take the phone calls, but I'm laying down on a couch all day long. I can't function.
Yeah.
I decided I'm gonna get with God and just get in a closet with God for the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, however long it takes for God to heal this in my heart, because it's just heartbreaking trying to deal with all this. And I remember, and I would sit in front of the computer. I said, bro, I got to produce something, and I can't write. I can't think. I would sit there for 3 hours and be like a zombie, just not being able to function. And then here I am, a guy that's just intense, going all the time. I'm like the Energizer Bunny.
Right.
And I can't get anything done and I just decided I'm going to get with God.
Yeah, you were running on fumes.
And remember, I told you, I said, you need to do the same thing. Remember that verse that I brought to you, where remember when it was Elijah, correct, that just
Right.
finished slaughtering 400 people,
Yeah.
and then Jezebel comes out and says, "I'm going to kill you," and he goes running into a cave.
Yeah.
I mean, what the heck is that all
The
about?
the damage that she did to him more than anything physical was a spiritual and emotional thing because he was like toast after that.
But he was exhausted from the battle.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
It wasn't just that. It's just like it's the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back. It's just
exactly, and that's where we're at.
uh,
We're
yeah,
giving so much all the time. As I see myself as a minister, no matter what I do, whether I'm behind a
right,
pulpit, whether I'm behind a mic, whether I'm dealing with somebody, I'm ministering to people all day long because I'm serving them. That's what ministry is. It's
yeah,
serving. I'm serving people. I'm a servant leader, and I give myself to exhaustion. And
right.
then something like this comes along, and and I said, bro, the only thing that ministered to me in that verse is when I was studying it, I saw the angel of the Lord. He went into a cave and retreated,
Yeah.
and the angel of the Lord came to him. He didn't come to him and said, "Get up and be strong."
Not the pep talk that
He didn't need a
you
pep
think you
talk. He
get.
needed to rest.
Yes,
He
he
just needed
served
to.
them.
We needed to rest, and
Yeah,
you didn't rest. And I said, "Bro, you're gonna burn out. You're gonna
yeah,
fry." And then you got the issue in your face because the stress built up so much.
exactly.
But you
You know,
didn't see it because you were telling me all the time. But I'm not stressed. But I'm not stressed.
because I didn't feel it,
Yeah.
but my body was taking its hits.
Right.
As obviously, we have this fascination, and I'm saying on a at a cultural level or
Right.
even in the church, where being busy,
Right.
it's like when you talk to brother, oh, I'm busy. What are you doing? Oh, I'm busy. And it's like, oh yeah, we sort of applaud it,
Right.
and it turns out that in most cases, it's not a question of just being busy. It's just a question of mismanaging your time.
Right.
Because I know I have that issue,
Right.
you know? So somehow being busy is this great,
Because we want to say yes to everybody. That's what
yeah.
happens. We say
And
yes
it,
to everybody and everything that comes in the door, and we allow everyone to hijack our time,
yeah.
thinking
So,
it's not worth anything
and we
because we're
think
ministers.
it's somehow it's a virtue now
Yeah.
to mismanage your time.
Right.
I'm busy, and it's like, oh, applaud. That's a beautiful virtue to have. Not necessarily,
Yeah.
in most cases, I would say 99% of the time, it's just mismanagement of time.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna, I'm gonna include myself in that
Right.
category because that's what it is.
Right.
It's just mismanaging your time, and somehow that has become like the trademark line to
Right.
just get people to
And
sort
then
of applaud
if we
you.
just
And
work harder and longer hours, we get it done. And I mean, I was working in my business until I was able to hire people and start growing. I was already working 80, 100-hour weeks.
right,
I mean, because it took so much out of me. I needed to physically be there. It wasn't a digital business.
right,
It wasn't like this where we can do this and multiply it. This
right,
was me physically having to be there on site, doing the services,
right,
and everybody wanted me and I was doing the podcast at the same time. People were like calling me, "Hey, can you help me with this?" No, I can't. I'm
right,
I have the podcast. I give all the free advice I can, but I can't do the consulting thing right now. Everybody wanted me to be a consultant. They still want me to do the consulting, so
right,
I'm doing teaching. I can leverage the social media. We can leverage the
right,
aspect of what we can impact and how we can help people. I'm doing a lot of video training where I can impact a lot of people.
right,
But I think that was impressed. That was the verse for me that said you need to stop and do
right,
that and just get yourself into that cave with God.
right,
However long it takes. For him, it was 3 meals. I mean, he came back and he woke up and the angel came to him. How did the angel minister? He just gave him food and water. He cooked the meal for him. I mean, he saw
there
it,
you go.
and he provided for him what he needed at that time was just to rest. Just don't even worry. Just eat and sleep.
That's amazing. It's
And
such
that's
a
all he
powerful
provided. That was the ministering
message.
of an
Yeah,
angel. Think about this for a minute. An angel that
yeah,
cooks. I mean, this guy is like Blue Apron. We're delivering
yeah.
the meal to your house, and I'm cooking
Gosh,
it for you. because
Yeah.
what you really need is to rest. You're exhausted.
Yeah.
And we don't stop and think about that. We think, oh, the angel came. How beautiful. I wish an angel would do that for me. No, I just
Right.
basically got up every day, made a meal. I went on keto and I went on OMAD, one meal a day, so I didn't have to cook.
Right.
I'm being
Yeah.
practical. And I eat one meal a day, and I eat 16 and I make 2 meals a day, and I eat eggs and beans for a week.
Right.
And so I don't have to think. And I just got in with God, and I just said, you got to heal me from this. I'm
Yeah.
just emotionally heartbroken. I can't function, and I am, and when that's when that where I'm weak, He is strong comes in, because I had no power to do anything to change my situation.
Yeah. A lot of the time, it's just resorting to whatever to try to keep going, and you're really running on fumes,
I am. I
and you
was
have,
running on fumes. I was because I go on these highs. I mean, I get on these,
yeah,
where I'm almost like a cocaine addict, where I
right,
get high on adrenaline, and when I'm dealing with all these tragic problems, but the moment the problem is gone, I crash. And I
you
will
know,
crash for 2 to 3 days sometimes, where I used to take off on the weekends and go to a hotel or something and take off to deal with that crash and just do what that verse did, recover by just eating and sleeping. That's all I would do. Go to a hotel, get
yeah.
away, go to the pool, no agenda, no phones, no internet, nothing, and just do that for 3 to 4 days. And I couldn't even do that. I had to do it at home.
Well, for me, when I left the ministry, I just worked for a week
Right,
at the furniture place
right,
as a graphic designer.
right,
And as I said, nice little office, very nice people. I mean, there was nothing that I could say, these people stink, and I can't stand them, or I hate it. It should, on paper, it should have worked
right,
perfectly.
right. Yeah, it was
But
a great gig.
yeah, when I went through a whole phase of mourning,
Yeah,
I would drive to work. It was about an hour drive, and I would just out of the blue just start crying and crying, and I just couldn't stop.
right.
I had to pray a few minutes before going into work, and I was just basically a zombie for the
Yeah,
next 8 hours. I
yeah,
would leave work at 5 o'clock. It was comfortable,
right.
9 to 5, you know. As soon as I would get in my car and I'd start that drive back, again, another bout of just crying and more. It wasn't until I realized, man, somebody's died and I'm in a phase of
Yeah.
mourning.
Yeah, we
And
were
I just,
having that conversation. We were having that
yeah,
conversation about mourning. It feels, when the Bible talks about death, it's talking about separation.
yes,
It's not a just that something died. When your job dies, your business dies, God forbid your
yeah,
child dies, your marriage dies, there is separation and there's death.
right.
And you have to go through a period of mourning. What have I done in the past? I worked through it, because I believe that if I just got busy and I would work, I would just get through this by staying busy and working. And I literally almost worked myself. The problem with the work is that you never really mourn.
Yeah,
You never go through that process of mourning. You never deal with it. And
yeah,
it just goes into the next relationship or the next job or the next whatever, and you're carrying it
yeah,
because you never dealt with it.
yeah,
And that's been my thing in the past, that I never deal with it. And then I finally, and I told you, and that's when I started ministering to you about it. And I said, listen, this is how it feels for me right now. It feels like death. It feels like
yeah,
I'm mourning and I don't know how long. And death is death, and mourning is mourning, and sorrow is sorrow. And people get overly spiritual in the church. Well, you just don't have enough faith, or you're just, not trusting God, or you're not studying your word enough, or you're missing services. I mean, this is how both happened to us during COVID.
yeah,
I mean, there was no church services. We were on our own. Nothing was
right.
happening. We were left to fend for ourselves for the most part. And it's always made to feel like, in some circles, especially around the Hispanic circles, that somehow there's something wrong with your faith and you're not spiritual enough, or you're just not trying hard enough to be trusting God enough.
Exactly.
No, something just died. You went through trauma. Trauma is trauma. The
Yeah.
body doesn't know the difference, like sugar. It doesn't know the difference between sucrose and fructose.
Right.
The soul just knows something is wrong and something is messed up. And how
Yeah.
do we, and then we find very few people that are mature enough. We've had this discussion many times where I can have a mature discussion with somebody about these, because it always turns into, well, you just need to try harder and get over it and move on and do something else and get your mind off of it. How?
Right.
I got to meditate on those things. And that was just when I got back into with God and just said, I'm going into that. And it wasn't for 3 days. In my case, it was 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
And before
Yeah.
I
It's
finally had a breakthrough, when I called you and I said, I can feel myself getting back. I was able to work today. I was able to do a whole day of work. I
yeah.
was working maybe 8 to 10 hours. I used to put in 14 to 16 hours, and I was probably doing 2 to 3 hours worth of work.
Wow.
And
Yeah. That sense of loss. It's not just leaving a job. At least for me, it wasn't. You know, for anybody out there who's listening, I devoted not only my time, my family's time, my
right,
kids' time to a ministry.
right,
That's what it was about. I wasn't mourning the loss of a job.
right,
It was the loss of in a way of a vocation, of a purpose, you
right,
know, because that's what my life had revolved around for the last 20 something years.
right,
It's just serving. I was a musician. I was a teacher there. I was able to be the hands that basically helped to, you know, materialize the
right.
vision on many fronts. We started going live, live streaming.
Right.
I took
The
care of
radio,
that. The
the radio. You
radio.
started a radio station,
Exactly. And nobody there knew what the heck they were doing, and it sort of landed on me to just get that
and then nobody
going.
knew what you were doing because they thought everything, we live in a drag and drop. Why can't you just
Dude,
fix things?
I was going to bed literally at 2 and 3 in the
I
morning,
know you were putting in those 16-hour
you
days. I
know,
remember. I said, dude, you're
you
gonna kill
know,
yourself.
and and I did it happily because you look,
Of course.
you're looking at the big picture for
You
for
got a
us as
mission. You got a
service.
vision. You can see where
Yeah,
things are going. What can happen?
and I wanted to see that in the ministry because I
Right.
loved that ministry. I
Right.
loved what God was doing,
Right.
and I loved the people that were there. So when I stopped working there, I was
Yeah.
still going
You're
to.
almost like your whole identity was wrapped around that.
Exactly. And suddenly having that sort of pulled from under your feet, it's rough. I went through a phase of mourning,
Right.
and on top of that, the the enemy has different ways of getting at you,
Yeah.
you know but just to hear or some stupid comment that, oh well, he just left because we stopped paying him, when clearly I was still going,
Right.
to the services. I was still doing the rehearsals. I was still doing everything that I needed
Right.
to do to serve, and my reasons for leaving were nothing to do
Right.
with the finances or anything.
Right. You would have done that for free because I mean,
I
you
was
played in the
doing for
band,
free.
you had to rehearse, you were
Exactly.
teaching in the academy for free. I mean,
Dude, we
those were
had
extra.
we
All
had ish.
this has nothing to do with your salary.
Yeah, and I mean, we even lost our car, the car that we had, and I
Right.
was still going to the services,
Right.
taking a
Yeah, you
train,
had a
taking a
car
bus.
accident in the middle of all this. Some guy
Yeah,
backs out of a driveway and destroys the car,
yeah,
and
and then
you're taking a bus to go to go to work every day.
yeah, and even after that, we
Right.
had issues, and I was still going on a train and a bus, and you know, it wasn't about that, and I don't feel they did me any wrong or anything. It's just the direction. I picked up on stuff that unfortunately the COVID-19 has become a barometer of sorts that shows you, it reveals, uh, some, I would say, true colors.
Of course.
And I saw stuff that I said, man, I don't want to be a part of this anymore,
Right.
because it didn't seem like this is God's work is not being done. That I
Right.
don't see it. This is more about another agenda, and I that's it. I'm that's fine.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to do, I'm getting off at this stop.
Yeah. And
You
you
know, and
held on longer than I did because I left in, what is
woof,
it, 2006.
7, I think, 6 or
Six.
7. Yeah,
Yeah, 2006. And I,
6.
I said, look, this is what I see. And sometimes we keep hoping,
Exactly.
you have a faith concept that you say, well, God can change things. God can change
Yeah,
people. God can
yeah.
change the company. God can change their heart.
Or you do it despite that because you see
And in
God
spite of,
still.
because you still believe in what's happening.
Yeah, and that's what happened, and that's why for me it was a death.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't realize it at the beginning. It was concerning because I've never been prone to that sort of,
Right.
you know.
Right.
But my God, every day. I mean, I would literally drive my youngest daughter to work. I'd be at a traffic light. Everything is normal, and suddenly
Of course.
it's like somebody told me, "Hey, so and so died,"
Right.
and I just break down and cry. I mean,
Right.
I had my wife, and they couldn't, for all their efforts, they're not in my shoes. They could not understand it. They were, no, it's okay. They thought it was fear. It wasn't fear. And I said, you guys don't understand. But thank you. Just, it's okay. Because they didn't know how to deal with that
Right. They've
other
never
than,
seen you in that condition.
yeah, they're exactly. That's one. And number two,
Yeah.
it's like, what's going, is he freaking out? And it's, no, I'm not freaking out. It's something else. And dude, I still have dreams. And in my dreams, there are a lot of issues that I know that,
Right.
and, on an intellectual level, I'm done with it. But obviously, in my spirit, that thing still needs to be dealt with,
Right.
and I'm getting over it, but it's a very real thing. And again, God is the only one that can actually,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. I
help with
went
it.
through it and I'm still like dealing with the afterburn of everything, but
Yeah.
I'm in a position now where, yeah, God has restored my soul. I mean, it felt like the proverbial valley of the shadow of death. Like
Yeah.
when you're going through it, you can't see the light around you. You see the darkness, and you still know God is there. You know God is hearing you. You know that He's with you. You know this, and you know it
I've always
intellectually,
and
but
I've always found that interesting. Light unto my feet, talking about God's word.
yeah, and a lamp
That,
unto my path, which is
yeah, it's not talking about a great, huge, you know, uh number of lights. It's talking really about a very limited when
yeah,
you think about it. I
yeah. I
mean,
was meditating on that not too long ago, and I was like, that's interesting that God calls it a light unto your feet and a lamp
yeah.
unto your path. There's two
So
things that happens when we're walking.
there's a lot of darkness out there.
There's a lot of darkness, and the light unto your a lamp unto your feet is so that you don't stumble
Exactly.
along the walk. But the light onto the path is to show you the direction that you should be going in.
Exactly.
Because there's the two things. We can lose that.
Yeah.
We can stumble and fall because we're not seeing where we're going. But we also then lose sight of the direction we should be going in. And we are off into
Exactly.
another direction. And a lot of the
And
times it's just not sin. A lot of people just attribute everything to sin. No, it's, man,
God's will.
could I have done what I needed to do 8 years earlier?
God's will. Exactly. Ultimately, being able to discern what God's will, what's your will, or following somebody's agenda.
Yeah,
And I'm having talks with a friend. I don't want to mention his name,
right,
but he's struggling with it because I would say he was more vested in the ministry than I was.
right.
And for years, it was all on, I have to do this. This is what,
Yeah.
and I always found, you know,
He's another Energizer bunny.
yeah, and I always found that, a little concerning. And it wasn't until before I left where, we were able to talk about, is this something that really you're doing God's, will,
Right.
or somehow you find yourself serving somebody's agenda,
Right.
and you're getting these two mixed up.
Right.
And now, you know, I can't say post COVID, but we're in the middle of it.
Right.
And he's told me, I believe that I've robbed my kids maybe of time, and my wife of time, and I've gotten these two issues mixed up where I thought, yeah, I'm serving God, but actually I wasn't really serving God. I was serving somebody else's agenda,
Right.
because the stuff that he knows that God has called him to do
Right.
has
Which
always
we've known
been,
for 2 decades.
yeah, has always been put
Yeah.
on a back burner,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And that's the place I don't want to be.
Yeah. No, and I think we're not getting any younger. He's a lot older.
Yeah,
I'm 50. You're 50. Um, and I'm really looking at that verse where it says, "Count." You learn to count your days because
yeah,
the days are evil, and understand that you've got a limited amount of time. When I was
that's
younger, I
true.
didn't realize I was eternal and indestructible. And
Yes,
then I'm finding out that yes, there is a lot of kryptonite
you're
out there,
always you're
and I'm
always
not.
you're always immortal for a limited time when you're
Yeah,
young, when you're
and
a
then
kid.
so now I'm really being more cautious of what I get involved in. Like I make time literally on my calendar for everything.
Yeah,
I know that by 3 o'clock, 3:30, I'm done working. So because I got to go pick up my son, I got to spend time with my daughter, and I got to pick him up from school every day, and then we go do the karate thing, and then we go do the soccer thing on other days. Other days we just go out and play. We got homework. Then it's
right,
let's have dinner together every day, and now for 4 or 5 hours, he's my devotion every day, pretty
right.
much, and everything else is going to take a back burner. So I answer calls? Yes, customers calling or whatever, but I don't have to deal with, and I've learned to really compartmentalize my time, where
Yeah,
before the lines got blurred a lot.
yeah.
And I would still make time because I'm just that about, from this time to this time it's blocked off. From this time I'm not dealing with. I've always made the time. You're a little more dynamic because you guys are all night owls. You guys are all,
Yeah.
you can get home at 10 p.m. and say we're gonna go have dinner, and your
Yeah.
wife is happy with that, and your daughter's happy with that because that's the time for you because you guys are used to that. And
Well, that's
you'll
the
be at
that's
Walmart shopping. I'd be like, dude, what are you doing? It's like I'm at shopping at Walmart at 2 in the morning. I'm up working and you're
that
out shopping at 2 in the morning
but
because
that
you're a night owl. You're comfortable with that, and everybody's happy with
yeah,
it.
and a lot of that had to do with ministry, believe
Yeah,
it or not. I mean, we would rehearse sometimes, get out at 11 or 12, sometimes at 1,
yeah,
and I would go home, and I know that, I should go straight to bed.
right,
But if that extra hour to just sit with Veronica and sit with the kids and just talk, and
right,
I'll put in that time, even
right,
if it means sleeping just 3 or 4 hours the next
right.
day for me. And I did that for many years.
Yeah,
I mean, I was always cognizant of the fact that those years aren't coming back.
right,
Yeah, and even if it's not orthodox or traditional,
right.
I would put in those extra
It
hours.
worked for you. It was
Yeah. Um, so that loss, the sense of loss obviously was going to be
right,
way more massive when it happened, because
right,
my life revolved around that.
right.
And so that it's just another chapter. But
So now we finally. It took me like a year to convince you
yeah,
that you should launch your own teaching business.
I always knew that was,
Right.
gosh, that would be a great thing to do. It's just your convincing was more like convincing me that I could do it
Yeah.
rather than just the idea. You know what
Because
I mean? It
you've been
wasn't.
doing
It
it
wasn't.
forever. It's like
Yeah.
there's no question. Like, can he teach? I don't know. I mean, he was a
Yeah.
great teacher at the academy. You've got the gift, you've got the experience. 30 something years, it was never a question. So we started talking, and I'm a numbers guy, and I can just see numbers in my head for business. And I was talking to you, and I said, dude, you realize that you don't need that many students. You got, how many Hispanics are in America? Like, 12 million. I mean, it's like 12% of the population. It's like, 20 million Hispanics.
Right.
Do you think you can pick up 200 students?
Yeah.
Out of, you couldn't see that. You were
couldn't.
so blocked off. You're like, dude, it's like, it's not hard.
And you told me you literally told me all you need is to get 1% of that 1%.
That's
and
it.
I don't remember the numbers now. I actually sent them to you ways back, but I actually sat down and I started doing research. How many Hispanics live in the United States? That's without counting, undocumented.
Right.
But I started doing the numbers, and then I started actually getting percentages of how many of those Hispanics don't speak English.
Right.
And then the 1% of that 1% was crazy. I said, holy cow.
100,000 students. I mean, we came out with that, and you couldn't dream of that in your life. I said, you don't need that much to make it. And when we're charging an affordable fee, and I said, why don't you just launch it online?
Yeah, and I remember telling her, Jesus, even if I charge them $1, if we play this right, we could do really well.
Yeah, because distribution on this is almost free. It's the production. That's what's taking you a year.
Yeah.
To record, because when we started talking about this, I said, bro, I'll pay for the platform. I'll get it running. I know you're struggling. It's not an issue. We worked on the platform that was just total. You needed a PhD and become a developer to run it. So we had to go with another one after we tried for 6 months.
Yeah, and remember why, which is and this is one of those things, and I built up that whole school ready to go, and then the thing that we least ever worried about, the registration process.
Yeah, it was just mind-blowing how hard it was to get it set up. It was ridiculous.
So I start seeing all these students trying to sign up. I can't get in. Doesn't take in the password. It just a nightmare.
We spent 2 months? You spent 2 months trying to fix that problem.
Yes, and then the tech support on that was just.
It was terrible. There was not
terrible.
Yeah, there was no
non-existent. I tried it myself, and dude, I've been in the tech world for over 20-something years.
The UX experience was horrible.
And I had issues with the thing on my phone.
The thing is that thing is being promoted as one of the top ones. That's why I bought it.
Yeah.
Which is one of the best ones in the industry. I said, man, if this is the best, I don't want to ever get across the worst.
So we switched platforms.
Yeah.
But now
you're building it up, and I'm like, dude, when are you going to finish? Get me.
I had to build it all over again.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because the thing is, you start tinkering so much with it.
Yeah.
That you want it to be so perfect, and you want every bell and whistle to be in it. And I told you, bro, sell a minimum viable product that's good enough without all the bells and whistles. Get people to use it and launch it. And you're still not launching it. And I said, well, you got 40 lessons. It's going to take them a while to get through that. Just get the 40 lessons launched.
Yeah. And we're almost there. I mean, that's the thing.
Jesus is going to come back, dude, and we're not going to be there. That third temple is going to get built.
Just so everybody knows, it's not just a video. You're not just sitting there and watching a video and that's it. You're going to
it's really complex.
Yeah, you're going to sit through a video. You're going to listen to audio. You're going to have your text there. You're going to take a quiz. You're going to be able to access your my PowerPoint presentation. That's all embedded. It's all interactive.
Yeah, plus you have all the practice lessons that are in there that you include in that lesson, that you're actually tutoring. It's almost like if you were tutoring them where you were there and giving them practice lessons to practice things in addition to what they're watching.
And each video is based on 3 or 4 actual conversations that are animated.
Right, because
that's
you're
a whole other
conversational English. You're not teaching how to write or understand grammar. This is conversational. So
I teach a little bit of that. I teach a little bit of that as well. But every lesson is based on 2 or 3 actual video, animations that I created, I voiced, I scripted,
Yeah, these are
know.
animated too. That are the
Exactly.
dialogue because it's very interactive. It is. It's very
Yeah,
complex.
so I'm teaching, and okay, guys, and we're talking about this. Please listen to this, and the camera will, no, it's not the camera, will switch to the animation, and they have access to those animations and the audios and
Right.
everything. So that's the level, because that's what I'm banking on as being what sets it apart from just, I'm going to buy an English course and just going to watch one video and that's it.
Right. No,
I
no.
need
This
to
is
make
so
this
interactive. It's unreal. And the thing is that you've developed your own method
yeah,
because you have a method. Since you're a musician and you're also a teacher and you teach the language, you discovered that there is a rhythm in language.
cadence, exactly.
There's a
Cadence is
cadence.
that.
Okay, explain that because what is that all about?
Well, people talk with a natural rhythm, you know, to get a student to say, for example, uh, I'm going to say it in classroom style as
Hmm.
it's usually or traditionally taught. What are you going to do tomorrow,
Right.
Felix? Nobody talks like that in English.
Right.
We have things like apocryphation and cadences. Apocryphations are sounds that disappear.
Right.
So we don't say, what are you doing? We say, what are you doing? What are you doing? There are sounds that actually get apocryphated, they disappear in
Hmm.
English. What are you doing tomorrow? And if you listen to that phrase, the stress falls on, you can actually number them like a metronome would do it.
Okay.
What are you doing tomorrow? What are you going to do? What are you going to do tomorrow? What are you going to do? And I create these little cadences that I use in class. And I tell them, listen to the cadence, listen to what I'm saying, what count it. What are you going to do tomorrow? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? I slow it down, I speed it up. And that is the way they're able to internalize not only the words, but they internalize the proper stress. You remember that actor that talks all weird? He's got a weird accent. My God. He was in Christian something. Chris, he talks like, I'm gonna see you tomorrow. He talks
Okay.
like that. The reason he talks like that is because he's American, but he was brought up in, I don't remember what city here in the United States, but where there are a lot of foreigners. Their English was not
Right.
native. They picked it up with all the wrong stress, you know, points and everything. And that's how he learned his English.
Right.
And Christopher Walken.
Oh,
Listen to
okay. Okay.
Christopher
Now I know.
Walken
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the reason he talks like that is because he picked up his English from foreigners with all the misplaced stresses, you know,
Right.
and that tends to happen in a normal school,
Right.
So that's one of the things as a musician, just listening to singers, the drummers playing, you know,
Right.
and you hear the way that you know, they're singing, the certain phrases fall and have these natural
Right.
rhythmic. So I decided, hey, I'm going to start using that in class. So rather than teaching them the phrase as a textual phrase, I would I would repeat it for them, but I would count along with them, and I'd have them snap their fingers as they're pronouncing it, and you could immediately see the switch from the beginning of from what are you going to do, give me 2 or 3 minutes with them, like, teaching this technique. What are you going to do tomorrow? What
Right.
are you going to do? What are you going to do? And you could see their reactions on their faces, like, holy cow.
Right.
I actually sound like an American. What are you going to do? Not only that, what you're programming their ears to pick up, that a question like that. So I can go in the next day and say, "Hey, Felix, what are you going to do tomorrow?" And he'll understand. I don't need to slow down and say, "What are you going to do tomorrow?" Because
Right.
that's not real English. That's not how it works.
Right.
So those little things I've acquired over a span of 30 years, I use that as part of my
Right.
teaching
And
style.
that's what I when I heard you talking to me about it, because I had no clue. I actually we came over to the house and I said, let's record one class here so I can, you know, see what this is all about. This was the time you didn't have access to the church computer, and we were
Yeah.
like, you know, what are we gonna do? Let's just come over here and record it, man.
Right.
And then I was able to listen to you for the first time actually teach an English class. I've never heard you teach an English class. So I
Right.
said, okay, bro, you've got an incredible talent. You have this ability. You've got this unique thing that nobody has. We need to package this, and we need to get that school going, and we need to do it and package it this way. This is what I started helping you with the marketing stuff, and how to, you know, so you, because you were good at graphic design, but how do you take that marketing and turn it into something that is going to convince people of why it
Exactly.
is that. So I said, let's start a podcast and let's put it on video. Let's put the YouTube channel. Let's start exposing people to it, and doing all of this. But it was a challenge to get you to
Yeah.
see that you could do this, that the numbers could be there for you, that you could make a living at this without having somebody pay your salary.
Right. Right.
That you don't need that many. It doesn't need. There's not that much that's needed. Now, if you're telling me I want to make $3 million, I would say, dude, that's a lot harder. But if you're
That's
telling me
another
what I want to
skill.
make is 100,000 a year,
Yeah, that's another skill to learn how to scale and stuff like that.
right? And then
Wow.
even then it's scalable, but
Yeah,
that's going to take a lot longer. And then
exactly.
you got to have some, or you got to have some serious marketing dollars.
Yeah.
But we started looking at the stuff, you know, that Gary Vee's doing, and I said, bro, I've been
Yeah.
practicing that for, you know, 5-6 years now. We just need to scale it. So being able to do this, like we're working on launching that you're teaching, but we're going to put it under a media brand house, a
Yeah.
holding house, and we're, you know, DigitalBisque is one of your ideas that you wanted to
Yeah.
start, but you wanted to do. I said, bro, let's scratch our own itch here. Let's
Exactly.
create our own products. We don't have to then try to convince. I mean, trying to convince a business owner that they need our service is much easier. Let's do our own thing, and then everybody's convinced that they need us because this is what we do.
Yeah.
We know how to do it. And
Yeah.
so why don't we? So we're launching this podcast to help Christian entrepreneurs see how they can run a godly business. I have my Pest Geek podcast that's already taking off, where I'm getting invites from all over,
Right.
because I've been teaching on that forever, for 6 years. It took me 6 years to get that going and figure it out. We're going to be launching for mine, a DIY pest control podcast, and
Right.
we're going to be launching a plant show, because half of what I do is plants. Plant healthcare,
Right.
and you're going to get to scratch your own itch doing all of the creative, which is what you
Yeah.
enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And
God, it's amazing because all of these little things that were sort of disjointed, all these other, side projects and everything, God is like bringing them all together,
yeah,
and that's something that, as a word of encouragement, all those experiences that maybe you don't know
of
what to
course,
make of, God will use them. If you just, you have to have clarity. That's something that, that, you know, one of the latest lessons I've learned is to be a little bit more honest with yourself. You know, it's like, I'd love to do this, but I don't really have time. In terms of clarity, you need to be honest with yourself and say, maybe that's not something that interests me at this point. And I have to stop saying that I just don't have time for it. It's just not of interest to me at this moment. You know what I mean?
right. Yeah,
You
I'm
know,
here. I'm here. I'm sorry that I'm ignoring you
yeah.
for a second, but I'm hearing you. I just had one of my technicians coming by to drop off checks and things, wanted to know if I
Oh,
was
okay.
available. So I was just texting him back. But
Yeah.
yeah, bro. I
But you
mean,
know what I mean? It's
yeah,
like when somebody tells you, no, I just don't have time right now to do that. No, the actual answer is, I'm not interested in that. Not to the point to
right,
prioritize it. And that's happened to me.
right,
Perfection is another thing.
right.
It has to be like, the thing is, I'm a perfectionist, you know, as a musician and now as a budding entrepreneur, I realize that perfection is, sometimes it's just fear,
Right.
just an
Yeah, I
excuse,
mean,
not actually.
because you're afraid of what if I do it wrong? What if I fail? What if I get
Exactly.
criticized?
And it's elusive
It's
because
elusive. Yeah,
it's never
it's not
ready.
real.
So at some point you have to kick yourself and, stop with the, stupidity. Just do it.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean, you've
just do
got
it.
all the look. You've got all the knowledge you're ever gonna get. I mean, right now for me, the knowledge that I'm gaining is incremental, maybe 1 to 2% a year.
Yeah.
It's not going to make a huge impact unless there's some new technology that we need to apply. There's nothing more that you need.
Right.
The thing is, you didn't have a plan. You didn't have anybody to basically tell you, okay, this is how you're going to do it,
Right.
because you never told anybody you wanted to do any of this.
Yeah.
It's been something that one day I will do. Maybe when I retire, it'll be fun,
Right.
and but not launch and not take that step and say, can I make this into a viable business, to where we're not struggling, we're not making ends meet, but we're doing okay. We don't, like I said, if right now, like, for what we need, unless if you live in Miami, unless you're making less than 85 100,000 a year in income, it's very difficult for you to live. It's
Yeah.
super expensive to live here.
Yeah.
Where
And
people
the
are,
reality that me and you both have pretty simple lives. I don't,
yeah.
it's
I
not
mean,
like
we don't have this idea that we need to have X amount or drive this car or
exactly,
drive this. I'm a
exactly.
minimalist.
Yeah.
I still wear shirts that are 20 something years old. I haven't
Right.
bought. I think I just started buying clothes this
Yeah.
year. Um,
Yeah.
it's not like I have a purpose. Like, we want to launch that Bible Academy. We want to get that
Yeah.
thing going. Um, my guy is, I'm looking at him from my window. He's backing up, and I'm like, dude, where are you going with that van? So, I just got distracted there. But,
Gosh.
it's not like we have a purpose for our money. We have a healthy relationship with money.
Yeah.
We don't have this, oh well, let's go take 100,000 out of the bank and show people on a bed. We're balling.
Yeah.
I think we're just and we just want to help everyone. That's just been you and me, because I guess we're just servants at heart, and
Yeah.
we want to help everyone. How do we help people the most? How do we become ministers of
Right.
things that nobody thought you could minister in, and
Right.
and have real conversations with people, and have about how to run a real godly business. I just got challenged by a guy, who's a colleague in the industry, and we were discussing about doing disinfection services, and I filter everything through the scriptures. If it's illegal, moral, and ethical for me to do it, and
Right.
if it is, then I move forward. And he was like, well, we're going to be doing attic decontamination. I says, you realize that in order for that product to work, you got to remove all of the insulation. If you've got rats and bat guano, and we're getting into all this technical stuff. And I said, just spraying a product up there isn't going to get you decontamination. It's not going to penetrate all that insulation, get down to where that feces is, because people don't understand that the feces releases all these pathogens. Once they're dry and you disturb them, if you go up there and you're crawling around on your knees and you're inhaling this is how you get respiratory infections that are really bad. I mean, you will be sent to the hospital with mice droppings and almost die. Just about a huge percentage of people die from inhaling mouse droppings. And I said, but
Right.
he says, yeah, but it's easy money. I said, no, it's not. You're not looking at the big picture. You got to remove that insulation. You got to go in there with a hazmat suit. You got to vacuum all that out, and then you can treat it. And by the time you're done, that's a $10,000 job to remove and replace an insulation and doing all that cleanup.
Right. Right.
And he's
Right.
like, but it's easy money. I can just go in and spray it. I said, that's the problem. There's the ethics problem. And
Right.
and the ethics in business tells me, yes, it sounds like easy money, but you're doing it wrong. You're not getting all the details. So now you're charging maybe $300, $400, $500, but you're giving a false sense of security and a false sense of value to people that think they got. Hold on a second. Let me grab this real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he came
Yeah.
over to drop off all the receipts and the checks. They do that every Friday.
Oh, cool.
Drop all that off. So, those are the issues, that the ethical issues that as a Christian person, I got to look at it and say, do I really know my stuff? Am I really being honest and transparent in business? Am I offering real value? And it cost me a lot of money
Yeah.
to give up money, because it's just easy to go out and do stuff and sell stuff and market it and not
And
really
I've seen
have
that,
integrity in what you're
and
selling.
I've seen that in you. The couple of times that I did that ride along with you, because that you like to educate your customer.
Right,
It's not like you just show up and do whatever and that's it. Oh
right,
yeah, pay me. You
right,
actually take your time to tell them specifically what you're gonna do
right,
and why. You even get into the biology of the insect. I hate I hate roaches. They terrify me. They disgust me. But even somebody as me has such an aversion to that particular
right,
insect. I found it fascinating when you explained why you put the baits, the
right,
way you do it, the way that they behave on a biological level, what happens when they ingest
right,
that. Even I found that fascinating. I
right,
came home and I explained it to my wife. I was like, it's incredible how, the way uh, Frankie deals with these insects. He places these baits at a certain
right.
distance, with certain parameters. When they ingest that, this happens to them because I found that
Yeah,
fascinating.
and one of the things that we made is we're making a brand promise to that client that we're not going to contaminate their home. And we're
Exactly.
promising that we're giving that customer a level of service that they would get if they were in a hospital. They're not getting the average pest control service with us. They're paying
Right.
substantially more,
But that
sometimes
speaks
three times more from a traditional company. But we made this brand promise and we made these protocols to be safer for that client, for the home, so that we don't have to unnecessarily contaminate anything. And 80% of what I have to do is educate. I got to educate my people.
exactly.
I got to educate the customer. I got to educate the public. So it's a
But
whole issue of
even that,
ethics, and that's why I don't hire people like people. Why don't you hire people from the industry? I said no, because I have to untrain them, and the whole ethics issue of how they're used to working at other companies
exactly.
and how we deal with things here. We're going to grow slowly. We're not going to be this neck breaking company that you're going to come into and all of a sudden within 6 months you're a manager. It isn't going to happen. You're going to have to start from the ground up. A lot of guys can't do that. This is why I don't bring them in, because they can't see themselves as being retrained by somebody when they think they have 20 years of experience. The problem is you don't understand our process, our protocol, our procedures of why it is that we do it this way. And we need everyone to do it this way, because this is what guarantees we deliver to that client not only the control, but the promise that we're not going to contaminate, that they're trusting us, that if their kid goes on that floor, there's no pesticide on that floor.
Right.
That's what they're trusting us for, that the dog isn't going
Right.
to lick anything up. Um, so we take a lot longer. We do it. So ethics is supreme in this, and this is why I do it this way. And I think that if we can teach other people, like, yes, you can be successful. Yes, it might be slower. Yes, it might take longer. But at the end, you will have that respect. You will, from your clients.
Exactly.
You will be an
Exactly.
expert, and you will be doing it in a godly manner. You don't have anything to explain to anyone when you are running your business in a godly manner. Sure, there are people who, I get told all the time on my other podcast, because I talk about it and on my Facebook, and it says, you post all this stuff about God and Christ, it's going to cost you business, because you're going to get people that are not going to do business with you because they see you're a Christian. I said, that's
That's
fine.
fine.
That's okay.
That's
I'm okay
fine.
with that. I'm okay with. Look, I understand. We understand things about Scripture. The Bible says in the last days, there people are going to mount for themselves teachers according to their own
Right.
beliefs. And
Right.
I say, well, why don't we just use that as the basis for being a fit for people that want to do business with a company that has integrity? If they're going to
Right.
be in the last days looking, then why don't we just be that light, be that business that people say, companies that I follow that I'm just enamored with, like Chick-fil-A and Lobby Hobby. They've gone through some serious court cases because of who they are as Christians. Um, Chick-fil-A, because the founder was outspoken about his Christianity and
Yeah.
how they close on Sundays, the
Right.
busiest restaurant day of the year, and they close. I mean, if you go on a
Right.
day that people go out to eat, it's Sunday. And yet he chose to close and honor God because that's what he thought, and that's fine.
Exactly.
I don't work on Sunday. I work on Sunday mornings here in my house, and I'm usually doing the Bible podcast. Um, but all that is free. I mean, I don't make any money on those things. That's my
Right.
ministry. I see it as that. That's my service because there are
I-
people
If
who are
if you're
following me.
if you're a Christian, you know you have to be totally aware that that itself is going to create division
Yeah,
somewhere.
yeah,
It's the nature of the beast.
yeah,
This is this whole call to unity that we're seeing, in today's
right.
politics and everything. And we all have there's too much divisiveness. It's like, i- if you're
Yeah, I
gonna
mean,
stand
when
your
Jesus
ground,
when Jesus warns you, says, "I'm going to bring brother against brother," and
of course, because
it's
truth
going to
is
happen.
divisive.
The truth
It's
is
that
divisive.
simple. It's
Yeah,
that
we need to
simple.
we need it. We need to do it. I think is when we get to a point where we're just being spiteful and mean just for the sake of being spiteful
Exactly.
and mean.
That's
But I don't
something
think
else.
anybody in their right Christian mind would say, "I just want to be divisive because I
Oh,
just want to be that guy."
no,
I
it's
think it just happens naturally.
exactly.
Um, and there are a lot of people who just, we've seen it now in the politics and everything.
Yeah,
We've been following that, and it's like,
it is.
unfortunately, they're not going to come together on these issues.
Of course
Nobody's
not.
ever going to convince me that abortion is good. I
Of
got
course,
Christians
it's that
who say
simple.
no. We're in 2021. Women do have a right in the Christian. Nobody's going to convince me that gay marriage is right
Of course
because we're
not.
in 2021. Nobody's ever going to convince me of these things,
Of
and I'm going
course,
to be
it's a flawed, mentality to say something is good based on the times that we're living, because
yeah. I mean,
then
the Bible says,
slavery.
"Woe
uh,
to you that call evil good and good evil,"
yeah,
and this is the age we're in, and I think we need to
yeah,
be that
because in
light.
in in retrospect, you could say the same thing about slavery
Right.
or child labor. At some point, it was legal. It was quote
Yeah.
unquote.
Yeah.
There was no ethical issue with it. Anybody could have said, "Oh, it's 1600 or whatever.
Right.
Slavery is okay."
Yeah.
You know, get with the program. That's not how it works. God's word
Yeah.
is totally separate from time, and it's
Yeah.
eternal. That's
I
really.
think I think we need to just focus on the eternals, the things that are tried and true.
Yeah.
Like I said, the Bible I've been doing. I'm doing that Bible podcast now, which we're going to be doing a little bit more of on Sundays, where we're trying to teach people how to apply biblical scripture to their business. I
Right.
think, man, I think we're going to encourage a lot of people.
Hey,
We're getting
praise
so many
God.
testimonies from that. You have no idea, man. I'm not even a believer, and I'm listening to you about this and how that applies because I've taken
Right.
the religiousness out of it. And I had another guy tells me, look, I'm having all my people listen to that podcast, my workers, and they're Catholic. They're not even Protestant, born again
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
believers, and they're saying they like it.
Right.
So I think there is a way to bring people in to
Yeah.
seeing the light without being necessarily divisive, without deciding I'm going to take these doctrinal truths and be dogmatic about it,
Of course.
versus
And
just preaching truth of what is in the context of that and saying, see how this could apply to business. Because
gosh.
we look at the Jewish tradition about seven being the number of perfection and seven in Bible teaching. And they said there's seven ways to look at that and how that could apply to your life at that particular moment.
Right.
And one time, time have you read that verse and it applied to your life at one point,
Yeah.
and then it totally applied to your life at another point in two different
Of
aspects,
course.
because that word of God is just active.
Dude, some of the best, or some of those occasions when God has ministered to me most, uh, have been after a service, not even during the service. It's just
Right.
hanging out with a brother from church,
Right.
or just talking to you,
Yeah.
just sitting down for some coffee. God has
That's been the
ministered to
best. I
me.
mean, I remember the best when I was in youth ministry. The best youth ministry was that bus drive because I used to
Yeah,
ride the bus and then they would sit in the chair behind me or the chair across and just talk to me about that issue that they were having. That
right.
one-on-one, which I had an hour and a half to drive around,
Yeah,
we did more ministry at that point than I ever did from the pulpit. Um,
and it also shows you how, the mindset can be so,
right,
restricted into one way of thinking
right,
about how God can minister. I remember leaving a service on a Wednesday night,
right,
and a friend of mine at church says, "Hey, we're gonna have some coffee at my place. You wanna, you know,
right.
tag along?" And I'm like, "Sure." And I showed up with my wife and my kid. We had a great time. Just a bunch of us just sitting there talking about
Well,
this
remember
and that.
when we finished the academy
Yeah,
on Monday nights, it was like 9 o'clock, and we're like, let's go over to Sergio's, the restaurant, and we'd go and hang out there. We
and
would hang there for
exactly.
2 hours.
And then one way or another, that would lead to something,
Of course.
to some topic in about Christ, or
Yeah,
something
that
that
was more.
like
Those were all the times in ministry that I can remember. Those have been
those were great. And then somebody gets up and says, I would like to bring, a little thought on this. So everybody's going to stand up and bow their heads. And it was like, and I could see people's reactions. Some one or
right.
two people that would be like, "Oh, really? We're going to turn this into a service now."
Right. It was just a
And
fellowship and
that was
naturally
it.
discussing life. That's what I want to do
You
with this
know,
podcast. Is just let's discuss this life issue.
yeah, and that
Let's
was
have the
the thing.
conversation.
And that was over.
Right.
Unfortunately, it didn't ever happen again, because now we had that guy who wanted to preach every time.
Yeah.
Every time we got together for some coffee, it's like, why?
Yeah.
Why do we have to turn this
Yeah.
into? It's like, in his mind, you can't sit down and have dinner with a friend and be ministered and let God do some
The work.
ministering there.
Yeah.
No, I'm
Just
gonna have to
sometimes to
take over.
listen to them, man. They're going through so much. And they
Yeah,
just need to somebody just to listen to them and sit down and have a cup of coffee. I've
exactly.
been through stuff. I remember Alberto that would, his kids grew up in the church with the ministry, and
Right,
sometimes I would just go over to his house. He was a mentor to me, and I would just go over to his house and let's go. He says, "Come on, let's go grab a soup, and let's go down
right,
the street and go grab a coffee,"
right.
and I would talk to him and just dump my soul. Uh, we need that. We need
Pour
people
out
who are
yourself.
qualified to
Exactly.
just minister to other people
Yeah.
without having to necessarily have this
Somebody at a
weird.
pulpit, somebody with the.
Yeah, yeah. Just be
No,
human and understand that
exactly.
if you know scripture, you're gonna have something that God's gonna give you.
Yeah,
I think that's where we're going with this. I think this is gonna be the way that we inspire people to have honest conversations about life and business and where they need to fix things, where they need to turn things around. Um,
praise
where
God.
there's maybe sin in their life and they need to, they
Yeah,
know. I mean, they're not running a
yeah,
godly business that they know they were called to do because
right.
we tend to separate the money and compartmentalize
Exactly.
it. This is my business life and I have to be ruthless here. And this is my church life and I got to be spiritual. And then when I go home, I kick the dog.
Yeah.
And I think we need to, and I've seen so much of that. We've been in ministry together for 20 something years. Before I was there, I was, at the bookstore ministry and the radio ministry and,
Yes.
and the publishing ministry, and I've been involved in all aspects of ministry, seen everything from behind the scenes, seen all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes that turned me off
Right.
from
Right.
doing this,
It's
and
hard not to get jaded,
and,
dude.
and, and it
That's
still hasn't, and I still want to
thank
give, and I
God.
still want to do the ministry because I know my calling, I know my vision, I know my ministry. It doesn't change me. It just changes the way that I want to be open about it, where we don't have to sit and listen to a Bible sermon because everything isn't a Bible sermon. And I believe in Bible study. We're getting ready to launch a Bible Academy online. We want to do that.
Yeah.
We understand there's a time and a place for everything, and I think the discussions really need to be those heart open discussions where we really do minister to people. Everybody sees, yeah, not every business is doing so well as everybody thinks, because everybody's on Facebook, you know,
Yeah.
fronting that they're so
Faking.
successful as an entrepreneur.
Fake it till you make it. Yeah.
Fake it till you make it. I
Yeah.
mean, I've been faking it, I think, my whole life. But yeah, bro. So I know you got stuff to do, and I got to get some calls answered, and I know you got people waiting for you to do some stuff. So man, it's been a great conversation. And
Thank you, dude.
now everybody's
Absolutely.
gonna know that you're the guy behind the scenes. So if it gets messed up, it's all your fault.
There you go. All righty then.
All right, bro. Get on to it,
Take it
man. We're
easy.
gonna get on to our day, brother.
All right.
God bless,
Beautiful.
bro.
God
Take
bless,
care,
man. Thank you.